The general had seen a lot in 28 years of service. He'd walked through bombed-out compounds in Fallujah, led negotiations in Kabul under sniper threat, and watched entire platoons crumble under pressure. But he had never, not once, seen a woman step off a Black Hawk with a 50 cal Barrett slung over her shoulder like it weighed nothing. And he had definitely never seen that badge. He wasn't even supposed to be on the tarmac that morning. His convoy had returned early from a forward planning base near Spin Boldak. A sandstorm had grounded half the rotary wing support, and the Black Hawk she came in on was diverted to his location. Routine on paper. Nothing about her was routine. He walked past, barely glancing at the new arrivals, when something caught his eye. Worn combat boots, dust-caked trousers, and a dull glint of metal on her chest. Not shiny like fresh pins, but faded, almost camouflaged with the dirt of 100 fire bases. It was the sniper qualification badge, but not the standard one. This one had a number beneath it. A number only a handful of human beings on the planet had ever earned. 100 meters. Confirmed kill. He stopped cold. She didn't salute right away. Not out of disrespect. She was focused, like she didn't even notice him at first. She reached down, unclipped her rifle case, and lowered it to the tarmac with practiced care. When she finally looked up, her eyes met his. Calm, clear, cold. The Barrett 50 cal was old. Not factory new. Worn paint. Black tape wrapped around the foregrip. The initials AV had been carved near the magazine housing, done by hand, probably with a field knife. The scope was custom mounted, the kind used by Tier 1 operators or those who refused to miss. The general's aides had moved ahead, unaware he'd stopped. He stood there for a moment longer than protocol allowed. Studied the rifle. Then the badge. Then her. Her name tag read Vance. She nodded once, subtle. A warrior's greeting, not a subordinate's. The general finally returned the gesture. That badge, most soldiers had heard stories of an anonymous sniper operating beyond known range in southern Afghanistan, taking shots most called myth. Targets evaporated in the wind. No witnesses, no shell casings, just rumors and results. But this wasn't myth. She was standing in front of him. The general spoke quietly, so only she could hear. "You're the one from Helmand." She didn't blink. Just said, "Yes, sir." That was it. No pride, no theatrics. Just confirmation. He hadn't heard the full story, only fragments from a blacked-out report. A joint task force cornered in a valley. Taliban leadership holed up behind natural cover. Drones couldn't get a lock. Ground forces were taking casualties. Someone made a call. A sniper was brought in. High-altitude shot. Wind distortion. Impossible math, one shot. Mission saved. Target eliminated, and now she was standing in front of him. 20-something. Calm. Almost too calm. He looked down again. That number. 3,200 meters. Even Navy SEAL instructors called it ghost range. Beyond standard effective range for any conventional sniper weapon system. The kind of distance where even a half-degree mistake sent a bullet 2 feet off target. She had made the shot. Then packed up and disappeared. Rumors called her the Ghost. Looking at her now, he understood why. She picked up her rifle case, slung it over her shoulder without strain, moved toward the intake tent, walking past rows of new recruits who stared like they'd seen a shadow. A few muttered under their breath. Was that her? No way. That's a rumor. She's got the badge, man. It's real. The general watched as the intake officer, a tech sergeant from Alabama, hesitated while checking her paperwork. His eyes widened as he saw the kill range on her record. He didn't say a word, just nodded and waved her through. She didn't need a fanfare. She didn't need an escort. She just needed a place to set up her rifle and wait. As the general turned to leave, a younger officer approached, clipboard in hand. "Sir, should we verify her assignment with Ops?" The general shook his head slowly. "No, if she's here, it's already been verified." The officer raised an eyebrow. "But I thought we didn't have any female snipers assigned to this unit." The general looked at him. Voice low. "We do now." He didn't say her name again. He didn't have to. The legend had walked off the helicopter, and by the time anyone figured out who she really was, she'd already chosen her next target. They say she made the shot in a sandstorm, one corporal whispered over a steaming cup of instant coffee. No, another said, shaking his head. It was at night. Thermal scope. Target on the move. They were all wrong, and all partly right. Only 3 people truly knew what happened that day in Helmand Province. One was dead. One had written the report that disappeared into a locked Pentagon drawer. And the third was Ayla Vance, the sniper now cleaning her rifle in complete silence, 30 feet away from the rumors. Her call sign wasn't on any wall. No framed certificates. No interviews. Just 2 words scratched into her ammo crate. The same 2 words whispered by men in forward operating bases up and down the Kandahar line. Ghost Raven. It started like any other mission. Bad intel. Worse timing. A joint patrol team was ambushed in the Darvaz Pass. 2 Humvees down. 8 men trapped behind a dried-up riverbed, pinned under relentless machine gun fire. Mortars had been dropped to within meters of their position, and the sky was too clouded for drones. The Taliban commander responsible was reportedly hiding behind a ridge 2 kilometers east, using radio relays to coordinate the ambush. Taking him out would break the chain of command, but no one could get close. There was no line of sight. And even if there was, the distance made it impossible for any standard marksman. So they sent her. She was already nearby, operating solo under Special Recon Authority, collecting telemetry data on movement along the Pakistan border. When the distress call came through, she was 6 clicks west, already halfway up a ridge. She didn't ask for extraction or air cover. She just said, "Send me the coordinates." The climb was brutal. Shale broke under her boots. The wind screamed in her ears. The elevation made every breath feel like she was sucking air through a straw. But she climbed, slow, deliberate, no rope, no drone support. At 0600, she reached the perch, temperature just above freezing, wind gusting northeast at 19 knots. Target range 3,204 meters. She opened her case, assembled the Barrett with smooth, practiced movements, checked scope alignment, recalculated wind drift, verified barometric pressure. There was no margin for error. At that distance, even her heartbeat could ruin the shot. She had to slow it. Steady it. She adjusted her breathing, counted down from 10, waited. Through the scope, she saw nothing for minutes. Just wind and dust and shadows, but then a flicker of movement. A figure emerged, standing near a satellite dish. Holding a radio, she exhaled. Adjusted elevation one final time, pulled the trigger. No one heard the shot. The .50 caliber round left the barrel with enough force to travel nearly 2 miles in under 10 seconds. It arced slightly, cutting through dry mountain air like a ghost. The wind shifted. She'd calculated for it. Adjusted 0.3 mils to the right. Trusted the math. Trusted her eye. The target never saw it coming. The bullet struck center mass, then passed through a steel comms box behind him. Instant kill. Chaos erupted in the valley below. The ambush crumbled. Without commands, enemy fire went silent. Half the fighters began retreating into the hills. The pinned patrol team seized the opening and pushed forward. No casualties, no warning. Just a single shot, and everything changed. She stayed prone for another 7 minutes, scanning the field, watching, waiting for confirmation. Then the radio crackled. A voice came through. Breathless, excited. Target down. I repeat, he's down. Clean hit. Who the hell took that shot? Ayla didn't answer. She packed her rifle. Left no brass. No footprint. No trace. 3 hours later, she arrived back at her observation point as if nothing happened. The mission report read, 1 shot fired. 1 target eliminated. No witnesses. The kill was confirmed by drone footage later retrieved from a Turkish-operated recon satellite. It showed the body, the entry wound, the chaos that followed. When the general read the report, he didn't speak for 10 full minutes. He'd seen good snipers, trained with some of the best. But this was something else. 3,204 meters. It wasn't just a number. It was a message, a reminder that somewhere out in those mountains, a woman with no rank on her collar and no need for recognition had done the impossible. Not for glory. Not for medals, but because 8 men were going to die if she didn't. Back at the base, Ayla Vance finished cleaning her rifle, reassembled it, slid it back into the case like a violinist placing their instrument into velvet. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. But before she zipped the case shut, she pulled a folded piece of paper from her vest, unfolded it. It was hand-drawn. A range card, weathered, edges soft from age and sweat. She looked at it for a moment, then whispered, barely audible, "Still works," and tucked it back into her chest pocket. The first time Ayla held a rifle, she was 8 years old. It wasn't military-issued, not even close. It was a worn-down .22 her father had kept locked in the barn's back room, wrapped in oilcloth and placed inside a wooden chest that once held saddle gear. She found it by accident, or maybe he left it there for her to find. Her father, Staff Sergeant Caleb Vance, had done 3 tours with the Marine Corps as a scout sniper. Iraq, Afghanistan, and somewhere they never put on the record. After his final deployment, he came home quieter, slower, but his eyes still scanned the tree lines on their Montana property like he expected something to move. He didn't talk about the war. He didn't talk much at all, but when she brought him the .22, cradled in her small arms like it was something holy, he didn't yell, didn't scold. He just stared at it for a long time, then said, "You want to learn how to shoot? You're gonna learn to respect the rifle first." That was Ayla's first lesson. Not how to aim, not how to pull a trigger, but how to understand the weight of what you held in your hands. Every Saturday, he taught her something new. How to clean the barrel without scratching it. How to breathe. How to read the wind through tree branches. How to wait, even when your heart's screaming at you to act. She didn't realize until years later, he wasn't teaching her to be a hunter. He was teaching her to be still, to survive. When she was 15, he finally took her to the far side of the property where the wind cut harder and the hills ran longer. He laid out his old Marine sniper rifle on a folding table, set up 3 steel plates at increasing distances. The furthest one was barely visible from where they stood. He handed her a range card. Half the ink was faded. She didn't understand the numbers at first: wind drift, elevation, bullet drop. Her father crouched beside her, pointed to the last line. "One day, this will matter more than anything else," he said, "because when it's just you, the scope, and the shot, you don't get second chances." She hit the first 2 plates. The third, she missed. He didn't say anything, just nodded, took back the rifle, and started packing up. She looked at him, frustrated. "That's it?" He said, "That's enough for today," then turned and walked back toward the truck. She stood there for a long time, staring at that last target, hating it, memorizing its shape. When she turned 18, her friends were applying to colleges. She filled out one form, U.S. Army, enlistment, no hesitation. Her mother cried. Her uncle called her crazy. But when she stood by her father's grave 3 days after receiving her acceptance, she laid the old range card down on the stone and whispered, "I'll make the 3rd shot count. He'd passed the year before cancer fast cruel. He died with his service cap on the bedpost and his dog tags hanging from a nail in the wall." Ayla kept them, both. Basic training didn't scare her. Not like it did the others. She could already shoot better than half the instructors. But she stayed quiet. Didn't show off. Didn't speak unless asked. That caught the attention of one of the sergeants, a former sniper, now running evaluations. He watched her shoot one day, watched her adjust for wind instinctively, calculate without asking, and still hit center mass every time. Later that night, he slipped a note under her bunk. It said, "We have a program. Invite only. You'll want to say yes." She said yes. Sniper school was brutal. They didn't care if you were fast. They cared if you were right. She failed her first hide. Exercise got spotted in under 20 minutes almost. Got dropped from the course. Instead, she went back to her barracks, stared at the range card she'd laminated and taped inside her locker, and memorized every single entry line by line. The next day, She crawled 2 miles through mud, stayed motionless for 14 hours, and took the shot without ever being seen. She passed. Barely. But from then on, she got better. Faster. Colder. She didn't talk about her past, didn't bring up her father, didn't say where she learned. To adjust for gusts before feeling them. All she did was shoot and not miss. On graduation day, she didn't smile for the camera, didn't attend the group dinner. Instead, she went to the edge of the base, unfolded her range card, and added one more note to the bottom. A small reminder, written in pencil, wind at 3,200 meters, don't trust the forecast. Trust the land. She folded it back into her vest, just above her heart. No one noticed. But one day they would. They didn't want her in the advanced course. Not really, the instructors said all the right things. That everyone was equal here. That skill mattered more than background, gender, or reputation. But you could hear it in the pauses between their words. The way they handed her the equipment just a little too slow. The way they double-checked her scores even when she beat the others by a mile. At Fort Bragg, the Advanced Marksmanship and Reconnaissance course was known for 2 things: grinding the best soldiers down to the bone and building legends from what was left. Ayla Vance had already survived sniper school, already earned her spot, but this was something else. On day 1, she was handed a pack, a new rifle, heavier than the Barrett, and a set of coordinates. No map, no partner, just a time limit. 8 hours later, she came back with the intel, mud-caked, bruised, and silent. Her lens cover was cracked and her boots were soaked through, but she was the only one who made it back before nightfall. They didn't say good job. They just nodded and moved on. Week 2 was stress fire, 12-hour drills, no sleep, simulated artillery dropping every few minutes, blanks in the trees, flashbangs, smoke. Recruits were expected to shoot, relocate, find cover, then shoot again, all while being chased by instructors pretending to be hostiles. Ayla didn't flinch. One night, they threw her into the tower drill. 30 feet up, wind howling through the frame, swinging platform. She had to hit 5 steel targets in under a minute, all at different distances. She hit all 5, 37 seconds. One of the instructors said under his breath, "That's Ranger-level timing," another replied. She doesn't miss. It wasn't just her aim. It was her patience. She could sit in one position for hours, watching, waiting, breathing in sync with the earth. Some recruits fidgeted, twitched, gave away position by shifting their elbow or coughing into the wind. Ayla lay still, like a stone pressed into the hillside. During the night navigation drill, when everyone else got turned around in the forest, she used the stars and a water bottle reflection trick her father taught her. She beat the course time by nearly half. By week 4, even the doubters had stopped talking, not because they believed in her, but because they realized something uncomfortable. She was better than most of them, better than some of the instructors, and she didn't even care about being noticed. One night, during weapons maintenance, one of the other soldiers tried to start a conversation. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" She didn't look up, just kept scrubbing the carbon from her bolt. After a long pause, she said, "The wind teaches you. If you're quiet enough to listen." He thought it was a joke. Laughed. She didn't. After that, no one else asked. Her reputation started to spread. One of the visiting ranger instructors asked to watch her next live fire drill. By the end of it, he was silent. He left a note for the head trainer. "Recommend for joint operations evaluation." 2 days later, she was flown out to a classified range. Desert, harsh light. Distance markers stretched beyond what most scopes could read. This wasn't training anymore. This was recruitment. An unmarked team was waiting, men with no name tags, worn gear, quiet voices. They didn't ask questions. They gave her a challenge, 3 targets, wind gusting crossfield, dust kicking up in waves. Longest distance, 2,800 meters, 1 shot each. She took her time, adjusted scope settings by instinct, closed her eyes for 1 full breath, then opened. First shot, hit. Second shot, hit. Third shot, barely visible through the mirage. She waited, adjusted, fired. The steel rang out a second later. One of the men turned and said, "She's cleared. Put her on the list." She was officially added to the Joint Operations Shadow Unit. It didn't have a name, just a mission. Go where others couldn't. Take shots others wouldn't. Her gear changed. Rifle upgraded. Comm unit encrypted. Call sign confirmed. Ghost Raven. The first mission was already waiting. Border region. No air support. One high-value target on the move. She was inserted alone, under darkness, with one goal: set up, observe, wait. She reached the ridge in 16 hours, no rest. Found a perch no one else would have used. For 3 days she watched. Didn't blink. Didn't move. Day 4, the target arrived, escorted, confident. She had one shot, one chance. She took it, confirmed. Kill, 3,200 meters, the longest in recorded U.S. history. The report was buried under clearance levels, but one copy ended up on General Hammond's desk. He read it twice, then asked a single question. What does it take to earn that badge? He was told, you'd have to be able to hit the impossible and disappear before anyone knows you were even there. He looked up from the file. That sounds like a ghost. Someone replied quietly, Sir, she is. Why haven't you taken the promotion? The question came from across the long metal table, surrounded by cement walls and flickering fluorescent lights. General Hammond didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He'd been watching her for weeks, ever since her redeployment to the main base. Corporal Ayla Vance, the ghost. He'd seen the files, the confirmed shots, the black-barred mission reports, the commendations buried so deep even half the Pentagon couldn't reach them without blinking twice. But one detail kept showing up in red ink. Promotion declined. Not once, twice, 3 times. Ayla sat across from him, posture perfect, expression unreadable. She wore the same worn boots she'd deployed with, the same quiet stare, the same weight in her eyes that most soldiers don't carry until after they've seen too much and spoken about too little. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached for the cup of coffee in front of her. No cream, no sugar, just black like always. She took a sip, then finally spoke. Rank doesn't help you see through a scope, sir. The general leaned back slightly, lips pressed together. That's not what I asked. She met his gaze. Not with defiance, just calm clarity. I came here to make shots, not speeches. Orders don't land bullets. He didn't argue. He didn't need to. He reached into his folder and slid a manila envelope across the table, stamped across the top. Operation Anvil, eyes only. She opened it with steady hands. Pulled out the contents, satellite imagery, heat maps, a photo. Grainy but clear enough, a face. A man with deep ties to covert arms trades, chemical routes, and known terror cells across 4 borders. No confirmed location until now. But intelligence said he'd be crossing the narrow ridge in 12 days, flanked by a security convoy under cloud cover and radio silence. Too risky for drone strikes. Too fast for ground teams, too far for anyone. Except one. Ayla studied the terrain layout, mountainous, sharp angles, deep valleys. A sniper's nightmare or dream. Depending on the shooter, she laid the photo flat on the table and said 2 words. One shot? The general nodded. That's all we'll get. Once he crosses that ridge, he's in another jurisdiction. Our hands go cold. Ayla leaned back, eyes scanning the images again. Already calculating elevation, wind patterns, sun angles. She tapped a location near the northern ridge. Best perch is here, but I'll need time. 4 days minimum. I'll have to hike in. We'll get you dropped within 8 clicks. After that, you're on foot. She nodded once, then stood. I'll pack my rifle. As she turned to leave, the general spoke again, softer this time. You could have a desk, you know. A command. A career without mud and blood. Why keep choosing this? She paused, one hand on the doorframe. Without turning around, she answered. Because the target doesn't care about desks. Then she walked out. 3 hours later, she was airborne. No ceremony. No send-off. Just the soft whir of the chopper blades and the low hum of the classified mission brief replaying in her mind. Her rifle was packed tight in its case. Custom-tuned scope, reinforced barrel, and her father's range card folded into the side pocket, laminated now, but worn from the years. Inside her vest, a single round, hand-marked, her initials on the casing. One shot, just in case she never came back. Landing was rough. She hit ground at 0200, no moon. Just starlight, she moved fast. Terrain was unstable, jagged rock, loose shale, sharp inclines. But she didn't stop. By dawn, she had climbed 3 clicks, set camp under a false ledge, hid her scent with crushed cedar and powder. Day 2, she started recon. Tracked wind patterns, took air samples, marked angles by the sun and the way the birds moved in the current. By day 3, she had her nest. It was nothing more than a cracked outcrop, barely wider than her torso, but it had line of sight to the ridge. She adjusted her rifle, matched her breathing to the wind, watched, and waited. On the morning of day 5, the ridge finally stirred. A convoy. 5 vehicles, slow, silent. She didn't blink. She adjusted 0.4 mils left. Dialed in elevation. Target appeared. Stepping out. Scanning the valley. No armor, no helmet, just arrogance. Her finger found the trigger. Her heart slowed. She thought of the number. 3,200 meters. And then she pulled. No sound. No flash, just recoil. The round flew into the wind. 9 seconds of flight, and then one body dropped. The others panicked, scattered, searched. But they'd never find her. She was already packing up, already gone, like a ghost. The extraction was never supposed to be quiet. By the time Ayla had covered her tracks and made it halfway down the ridge, the enemy patrols were swarming the valley. Radio intercepts had confirmed what she already knew. The man she'd taken out wasn't just a high-value target. He was a keystone. A ghost kill like that didn't just stop a convoy. It collapsed a network, and now they wanted blood. She moved through the rocks like vapor, every step measured, every bootfall placed with precision. She didn't run. Running got you killed. Running made noise. She descended slowly, switching elevation patterns every 200 meters. Always circling, never giving a straight path. By hour 5, the first drone passed overhead. She stayed perfectly still beneath a jagged rock shelf. Its camera scanned, whirred, and moved on. By hour 7, they were using dogs. That was new. She'd trained for it. She opened the small pouch on her hip. Fox urine. A trick her father used to throw off mountain lions back in Montana. She doused a trail leading north, away from her position. She heard the barks shift direction, then silence. At Arrow 100, she reached the extraction point. Nothing. No sound. No rotor wash. No signal. Just a flat plateau beneath a blood-red moon. She clicked her encrypted comm twice. Waited. Nothing. Something had changed. She checked her satellite phone. A single message blinked. Short, cold. Extraction moved. Coordinates attached. Go dark. The new location was 10 clicks east. Through open terrain. No cover. No backup. No margin. She took a breath. Packed her rifle tighter. And moved. She didn't stop for 6 hours. Her legs burned. Shoulders ached. Her pulse felt like a metronome in her ears. But her breathing stayed steady. Controlled. Just before sunrise, she reached the extraction ridge. The bird was there. Engines low. Rotors barely moving. Painted black. No unit markings. A man waved her in, visor down. Headset crackling. She approached, rifle case slung across her back. But as she got closer, something twisted in her gut. The man wasn't part of her usual crew. No rank. No patches. He didn't even look at her gear. Vance? He asked. She nodded. Mission's complete. You're being reassigned. She frowned. Who authorized that? He didn't answer. Just motioned to the side door of the chopper. Inside, 2 more men. No names. No faces. She looked at them for a long second, then stepped back. No, the pilot hesitated. Ma'am, orders are, I don't follow orders I can't trace. One of the men inside reached for something beneath his vest. That was a mistake. Before his hand touched metal, Ayla drew. One swift movement. Sidearm raised. Finger ready. The chopper suddenly roared to life. An emergency call from a nearby channel crackled over the crew's headset. Another voice came through. Familiar. General Hammond. Vance, Hold position. That's not your ride. She didn't lower her weapon. The man in the doorway froze, then backed off slowly. The false crew didn't resist. They lifted off without her. No questions. No confrontation. Just gone. She stood alone on the ridge, dust blowing across her boots. A new chopper arrived 8 minutes later. This one real. Hammond was on the line when she boarded. They wanted to disappear you, he said bluntly. Whoever you hit out there, it rattled someone higher than we expected. She didn't respond. Just stared out the side window as the mountains shrank below. You're not safe here anymore, he added. I never was, she said quietly. There was silence on the line. Then, you're being reassigned. Under direct command. No more base rotation. No more visible deployment. She turned slightly. What does that mean? It means you're off the books now, fully. Her jaw tensed. You want a ghost? I've already been one. This time, he said, you won't be alone. She raised an eyebrow. He continued. We're building a unit. One like you. Quiet, precise, zero recognition. High risk, zero fail. You'll lead it. Her voice dropped. I don't lead. You do now. She didn't agree. But she didn't say no either. Hours later, when the chopper finally touched down at a secured hangar far from the main base, a folder was waiting on the bench. Inside, profiles. 3 operatives, female, all ghosts in their own right, a former Air Force combat controller who'd vanished after a failed mission in Syria, Navy linguist who broke every decryption record but was discharged for going off script, and a Marine corpsman who'd dragged 5 men out of a burning vehicle under fire, then disappeared from every military database 3 months later. Each had one thing in common. They shouldn't exist, but someone, somewhere, had pulled strings, made files vanish, set them free, and now they had one new leader, Ayla Vance. The woman who'd made the impossible shot and then walked away without a sound. They met in a windowless room buried beneath 6 levels of concrete and silence. No one shook hands. No one smiled. There was no need for introductions. Only 3 chairs, 3 files, and one mission briefing that began with a line none of them expected. You've all been erased. The man who said it didn't wear a uniform. His ID badge had no name. He didn't give them a title, but his voice carried weight, the kind that made seasoned operatives sit a little straighter. You don't exist anymore, he continued. Not officially. No rank, no record, no country. If you're caught, we will not come for you. If you die, there will be no flag on your casket. The woman on the left didn't blink. Short hair, square jaw, the burn scars on her neck barely visible under the collar. Ex-Marine. Code name. Hex. The one beside her. Dark eyes, calm hands, eyes always moving. Air Force Signals Specialist turned off grid tracker. Code name. Shadow Bird. Ayla sat across from them both. Still, focused. Code name. Ghost Raven. She didn't need to prove anything. The others already knew. The file spoke louder than a salute ever could. The man set a single photo on the table. A convoy. Desert background. Civilian clothing. Armed guards. A woman in the center, veiled, flanked by a private army. Her name wasn't listed. Only her code, Black Echo. She wasn't on any official enemy watch list. No country claimed her. But she moved weapons across borders without touching them. Her fingerprint had shown up on the remnants of a chemical canister detonated in Al-Muthana. 32 civilians. No survivors. Until now, she'd been a ghost, one that rivaled Ayla's silence. But new intel placed her at a location in Sudan. Not for long. A meeting with warlords, then extraction by private jet. Window of opportunity, 4 hours. The mission was simple. Get in, confirm the identity, eliminate the target. But there was one complication. The meeting was being hosted inside an orphanage compound that doubled as a weapons hub. Dozens of children on site. No civilian casualties allowed. No airstrike backup. Every shot had to be clean. Every move invisible. Hex spoke first. I can infiltrate through the west wall. Get close to the ground team, Shadowbird added. I'll kill the comms. No one's calling for help if this goes sideways. Then all eyes turned to Ayla. They didn't need to ask what her part was. She would be positioned 1,900 meters outside the compound, atop a collapsed minaret. It was a broken structure, cracked, slanted. The wind cut across it like blades. But from there, she'd have one clean angle to the meeting room. One window, one shot. They were wheels up that night. Their transport was a modified cargo plane with no markings. They jumped in silence, parachuting into the darkness at 3 a.m. by sunrise. They were in position. Shadowbird breached the utility shack and cut the power without a sound. Hex slid through the ruins and slipped into the crowd, dressed as a relief worker. Medical kit slung over her shoulder, and Ayla, she climbed. Every step up the shattered minaret felt like a test. The stone crumbled under her boots. Her breath caught in the dust. But she kept going, hands bleeding as she pulled herself over jagged concrete. At the top, she lay prone, adjusted the bipod, set her scope. Her heartbeat slowed. The rifle rested like it belonged there. Through the lens, she saw the room, target entering, surrounded by guards. Then, something unexpected. A child, young, maybe 10, brought into the room. Standing beside Black Echo used as a shield? A translator? Didn't matter. The shot was off the table. She radioed down. Target shielded. Need a shift? Hex's voice crackled back. I'll create a distraction. Wait for the opening. Seconds ticked. Then a flash of movement near the main gate. 2 guards doubled over. A siren wailed. Chaos. The child ran, and Black Echo turned, exposed. Ayla didn't think. She adjusted .2 mils left. Wind was rising. She fired. The sound vanished into the wind, through the scope. Impact. Clean. No overpenetration. No secondary casualties. The body dropped. The compound erupted, but Ayla was already moving. She disassembled the rifle mid-descent, packed it in 3 parts, dropped down the side of the minaret using a reinforced cable. Shadowbird met her at the edge of the tree line, breathless but grinning. They didn't see a thing, she said. Hex arrived minutes later, bruised but alive. They vanished into the brush. Extraction came at 0300. By the time the sun rose again, the compound was in full lockdown. No one could explain what had happened. No bullet was ever found. No trace of the shooter. But whispers spread about a woman who fired one shot through a broken window from an impossible angle and disappeared before the echo reached the ground. The metal was real, heavy, gold, quiet. They mailed it to an address that didn't exist anymore, an abandoned P.O. box in Bozeman, Montana. No ceremony, no handshake, no one to salute. It sat in the box for 9 weeks before a local postmaster, a retired colonel himself, recognized the name stamped on the envelope. He didn't open it. He just stared at the return code on the corner, Department of Defense, non-attributable, then locked it in his drawer. I don't think she needs it, he whispered to no one. Far away, in a village where the power flickered at sunset and the trees grew over what used to be roads, Ayla Vance sat beneath an old tin roof, oiling her rifle in silence. She hadn't fired a shot in 2 months, not because she couldn't, but because, for the first time in years, she didn't have to. The unit had gone dark after Sudan. The mission was too clean, too perfect. There were whispers. Higher-ups wanted to restructure. No one said disband. But the message was clear. They'd done their job too well. Ghosts weren't supposed to leave shadows behind. Shadowbird had vanished first. Her last message was a single line of code sent through an encrypted burst. Sparrow roosting. Hex followed a week later. No trace. Ayla didn't look for them. That wasn't the rule. They were ghosts now. Like her. Still, she waited. Every sunrise. She checked the field radio for a ping. Every night, she scanned the tree line once before sleeping. Old habits. Until one day, something did change. She heard footsteps, measured, familiar. She didn't reach for her rifle, didn't need to. The woman stepped into view, slim. Tactical gear faded from sun and dirt. Her hair pulled back. Shadowbird. Ayla said nothing, just raised one eyebrow. Shadowbird handed her a small drive. There's a list. Not from the brass. Not even from Hammond. It's from us. Ayla plugged it into her field device. Names, locations, faces. Not all enemies. Some former allies, people who had traded secrets, who'd sold operations for cash, who'd betrayed their own. At the bottom of the list, one final name. Black Echo. Cell remnants. Ayla looked up. Shadowbird's voice was calm, but her eyes burned. They're rebuilding, using children, disguised under humanitarian fronts. We can't go back to the system. They'll bury it. Ayla closed the device. She stood, picked up her rifle case. No words, none needed. They traveled for 4 days, across borders no longer drawn on maps, through jungles and dry cities, abandoned checkpoints and cities too poor for cameras. At a safe house near the coast, Hex was waiting. Her arm was in a sling, scarred, but her eyes were sharper than ever. She handed Ayla a folded note from Hammond, written by hand. No date, no rank, just a message. If you're reading this, then command has failed. Keep your own code. Protect the innocent. Burn every name that tries to hide in smoke. Below it, the last words. Make your shot count. Ayla didn't speak. She simply opened her pack, pulled out the same laminated range card she'd carried since she was a teenager, and crossed out the final note at the bottom. Then she wrote a new one. There is no wind in betrayal, only silence. The 3 of them left that night. No backup, no satellites, just instincts. Their mission was no longer sanctioned, but it was pure. They moved like phantoms, disrupting safe houses, exposing traffickers, dismantling networks that had learned to blend into chaos. One by one, the names vanished. No press, no paperwork. Just clean removals, until there was only one name left. A compound hidden in the shadows of the Carpathian. Mountains, cold, isolated children were being trained there, taught to hold rifles before they could read. Ayla set up 2,700 meters out. Wind steady. Elevation dropped sharp. She waited 3 days for the leader to show. When he did, she saw it all in the scope. How he laughed, how he pointed at the children. Barked orders. She breathed once, fired, impact. The laughter stopped. The compound went into lockdown. But it didn't matter. She was already gone. Weeks later, a new file circulated among intelligence agencies. Unmarked. No sender. Inside, photos of freed children, faces blurred. Locations tagged. Across the bottom, a phrase scrawled in rough ink. Justice doesn't need permission. Somewhere in a quiet part of the world, Ayla sat under the stars, her rifle beside her, a cracked photo of her father resting in her lap. She whispered to it. I made the 3rd shot count, and the wind carried the silence.